Voter suppression discriminates against minorities, and under the excuse of voter fraud, millions of qualified citizens are being purged from the voting rolls. The narrative of election fraud is but a political strategy to fuel racist policies that restrict minorities and a tool to manipulate elections. Affirmative, voter suppression exists. Term definition: voter intimidation. Whoever intimidates, threatens, coerces, or attempts to intimidate, threaten, or coerce any other person for the purpose of interfering with their right of such other person to vote or to vote as he may choose, or causing such other person to vote or not to vote for. Title 18, U.S. Legal Code 594. Voter suppression, according to Ballotpedia. The undue limitation on the ability of a citizen to cast countable ballots in an election. Voter fraud, according to projectvote.org. The intentional corruption of the electoral process by the voter. This definition covers knowingly and willingly giving false information to establish voter eligibility, and knowingly and willingly giving, illegally, or participating in a conspiracy to encourage illegal voting by others. The following definitions are according to Oxford Dictionary. Exist, to be real, to be present in a place or situation. Disenfranchise, to take away someone's right, especially the right to vote. Purge, to remove people from an organization, often violently, because of their opinion or activities are unacceptable to the people in power. Democracy, a system of government in which the people of a country can vote to elect their representatives. Civil rights, the rights that every person in a society has, for example, to be treated equally, to be able to vote, work, whatever their race, sex, or religion. Minority, a small group within a community or country that is different because of race, religion, or language. Contention number 1. Voter suppression disenfranchises minorities. In the first place, it is essential to remember that voting was not always a default right for all Americans, such as women and people of color, and we shouldn't take it for granted. Therefore, protecting our fundamental right to vote is of vital importance to preserve a fair democracy. In 2013, the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act of 1965, signed by President Johnson, to eliminate racial discrimination in voting. The landmark decision of Shelby County versus Holder freed 9 historically racist states in the South to change their voting laws without federal approval. The removal of the protections from the civil rights movement set the stage for the disenfranchisement of minorities once again, as the Supreme Court gave the green light, according to the American Bar Association Journal. Contention number 2. Voter suppression is a political purging tool. As a matter of fact, voter purges were meant to filter out anyone ineligible, like the deceased, or those with disqualifying criminal convictions or duplicate registration. But the problem is, when done incorrectly, it targets and eliminates legitimate voters. Approximately 17 million voters were purged nationwide between 2016 and 2018, and also similar numbers were seen between 2014 and 2016 as a direct result of the 2016 Supreme Court ruling, according to an investigation from the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU School of Law. Voting should be easy and convenient for all. However, many politicians across the country are going the opposite direction, passing restriction laws that suppress and mass purge voters as a strategy to influence election results, which discriminates against the civil rights of minorities and increase the racial gaps in voting, as stated by the Economist newspaper. Contention number 3. Voter suppression disguised as voter fraud. Equally important, under the premise of protecting the integrity and credibility of the electoral process, 25 states have passed new voting restrictions after the 2010 elections. Restrictions consist of strict ID requirements, early voting cutbacks, and registration limitation. Nationwide lawmakers began imposing hundreds of harsh policies blocking voters, thus compromising the trustworthiness of the voting system as reported by the Brennan Center for Justice. An in-depth study found only 35 credible allegations between 2000 and 2014 out of 800 million ballots cast in national general election, according to research from Loyola Law School professor Justin Levitz. Voter fraud is extremely rare. However, it energizes discriminatory policies that further disenfranchise minority communities. The implementation of voter suppression is a way to control election outcomes. It is a consequence of the 2013 Supreme Court ruling that has severely distorted our democracy. In conclusion, as can be seen, under the pretext of preserving the confidence in the voting system over the last decade, states have enacted unjust voter restriction laws that disproportionately disenfranchise racial minorities by suppressing their votes to influence election outcomes. The consequence is a seriously compromised democracy that does not reflect the will of the people. Our democracy works best when all eligible voters can participate and have their voices heard, because well-informed citizens are democracy's best defense. Thank you.